Most entrepreneurs say they need help, but few actually can delegate it. They either wait too long, they hire the wrong person, or they spend so much time going through and explaining tasks that they wonder if hiring somebody was actually worth it all. So, what if the real issue isn't having a virtual assistant, but how leaders think about delegation? Today's guest has spent nearly 2 decades helping business owners move from overwhelm to operational clarity. She has seen the good, the bad, and the very messy when it comes to hiring help. And she's here to share what actually does work. So, welcome, Rachel Davila. So, Rachel, thanks so much for joining us. I'm really excited to have this conversation today because I get asked a lot, do I know any virtual assistants? Do I use a virtual assistant? So I'm really excited to hear your input. And so maybe just kick us off. Let us know, like, how did you get into this VA world?
Thank you for having me, Vicky. And I got into virtual assistants on accident. Actually, it was quite intentional, but I found the term on accident. I've always been an administrative type of person. I was a stage manager in college. I worked as my dad's right hand for a couple of years. I've done nonprofit. I worked in corporate. But when my corporate job was getting downsized, my family was young and I was looking for something where I could take the skills that I had earned, but do it from home or have more flexibility. And I was playing around with professional organizing, event planning, all those things that require a stage manager, and came across a website of a virtual assistant. And I read through the whole thing and I was like, this is magic. What is this? What can I do with this? And she ended up being local to me in San Diego. She talked to me for an hour about what it was, what she did, how she got into it. And everything about it just hit my body with a hell yeah.
It's okay.
With a heck yes. And I explored it. I did the 20-week virtual training program from Assist You and started my business as a business owner who provides operational and administrative support to other business owners. And I wanted to be valued by the people that I worked with and still do the things that I love doing and that they didn't.
Which is so important, right? Especially when you're an entrepreneur, because there will be certain things that you're really good at and you excel at. And then there's those tasks that are like, I just really like, I'll procrastinate or I just don't want to do it. Eventually, you come to the realization that that's not the best use of my time because that's not my sweet spot. That's not my skills.
Yeah. I found the book, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks later on, and he talks about the 4 zones, right? And people mostly focus on the zone of genius. And I lean into that because I found that being a VA was actually my zone of excellence, but helping business owners to figure out what they were actually looking for in virtual support was my zone of genius. And it came from all the years of working with business owners and hearing them say how scary it is to hire a VA. And at the beginning, people would say that, and I'm like, I'm amazing. All virtual assistants are like me. We're amazing, because all the ones that I knew were. But when I hired my own VA and I learned not all VAs are the same, I understood why people were scared, because a lot of times they start out with, I call them, there are 2 kinds, and these are my terms. I call them doers and collaborators. So doers are more transactional, task oriented. Tell me what to do and I'll do it. And collaborators are more solution oriented. Here's how I can help. Here's what we can do. And they tend to help lead the relationship by taking on those tasks that clients don't want to do. And my first VA was very much a doer. And I was thinking, I'm going to hire a VA. They're going to be like me. I'll have a me for me. And that wasn't what I got. So I was like, that's why people are so scared of bringing somebody on, because they have an idea in their mind, and that's not always what they get.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's true no matter what role you're hiring for,
Yeah.
right? Like you have this visual or vision in your mind of what it is you need and you think you're going to get support with, but then the reality of it can be very different. And so some of that is knowing what to ask when you're interviewing. And to your point, you mentioned this a moment ago, it's really understanding what do you really need, right? And what you need today, can that person grow with you into what you need for tomorrow?
Yeah.
So you've been doing this a really long time. I mean, 21 years as a virtual assistant, because even the language virtual assistant has only come around, what, in the last 5 years, maybe? Like really since COVID, that it's more, I'm going to use the word mainstream.
Yeah. It's funny. When I started in 2005, no one knew what a VA was. If
Right.
I said I was a VA, they thought I worked for the Veterans
Yes.
Administration. So, to your point, I've been educating business owners for a long time what a VA is. And even now that the term is mainstream, it's not standard. It's not a one size fits all term. And now when people think of a virtual assistant, they think outsourcing, they think overseas, they think low cost. And that's not really what VA means. A virtual assistant is a business owner who works with business owners to take on their administrative and operational support. It was never meant to be the cheap alternative to hiring an employee or bringing on help.
Yeah, I'm glad you highlight that, Rachel, because I mean, I get inundated on LinkedIn with, advertisements, people, and that often comes up. Oh, VA support for like below minimum wage. And so I think that sometimes that's where that message gets cloudy, and more of what you're doing, if I understand this correctly, you're partnering with business owners in a remote location is probably the best way to say it, right? Like you are their assistant, they're the person who supports them with whatever those things are that you agree upon. Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about some of the biggest mistakes entrepreneurs make. So, I get asked this a lot. So, Vicky, when you started your business, like what were the must-have roles that you required? So, what are some of those mistakes that you see entrepreneurs making when they finally decide it's time? I need help. Either I'm overwhelmed or this is just not my skill set. So, what do you see happening?
So I wrote a whole book on the mistakes that I made. So I'm thinking that this is where a lot of people make the same mistakes. They go into it in that state of overwhelm without having taken a pause to ask, what do I actually need? Most people go straight to the handoff list. What do I want to hand off? What does that look like? How does that, you know, okay, I can give them the login, I can give them the password. There you go. You're going to take it on, you're going to read my mind, and I'm going to feel ease, right? And what I've learned is there is so much mindset work that goes into being able to. I had to let go of perfectionism. I had to let go of
Mm,
control. I had to let go of my tendencies to sneak in behind my VA and do all the tweaks without recognizing that that made me the problem in the
mm,
relationship because I wasn't communicating those changes, those things that for me were going to be the things that came up every single time. If I didn't say this isn't how I want it, this is what I want instead, then my VA wouldn't learn those nuances, those tweaks. And in the beginning, I didn't even know those were my tendencies. I didn't
mm,
know that's how I showed up as a leader because I was always so used to doing it all myself that I was like, well, it's just easier if I go in and make the few tweaks because I could.
Yeah.
And I think business owners tend to go, well, it's just easier if I do it. And there is a mindset shift of, if I always do that, my VA will never learn. I will always have to do it. And then what's the point of having a VA to do that? And I knew there were things that I did because I would go to the same email, copy, paste it, and send it, but I didn't have my process clearly outlined. I didn't know what it looked like, so I couldn't then hand it off to somebody else. So I still had to do it until I got into I do have a system, I do have a process, here's what it looks like. Okay, these are the things that I want to do, here's what I need you to do. Mm-hmm. I also had to learn what my tendencies were. Yeah. So about halfway through the first couple of months of working with my VA, I read the book, The Four Tendencies by Gretchen Rubin, and realized that I'm an obliger. I can do for my clients, but I don't do the things for myself, for my business to grow at that time. And I learned that I needed the accountability and that I'm a verbal processor. I need somebody to sit there and listen to me just get all my thoughts out of my head. And I needed somebody to then go, okay, here's what I heard you say. And help me to outline, timeline, like do all of the things that I naturally do for clients. I needed somebody to help me with that. And those are qualities beyond the task list.
Yes,
those
absolutely.
are things that people don't think about for themselves. What does accountability look like for me? Do I need it? Or am I a person who can hold my own accountability and I just need somebody to do the work? Those are two different managing and leading styles. And so I think having that get to know you conversation with yourself, what are those things that you need? Not just the social media management or the keeping an eye on my calendar, it's those tendencies, those gaps that you have that you're looking for your VA to fill. Mm-hmm. And not many people think about that until they're in the midst of it going, why isn't this working? Oh, because I haven't given it enough thought or I didn't know.
Well, that's great awareness that you share. And what I would say to that, I mean, I coach a lot of executives, leaders, aspiring leaders, and that is a very common trait, actually, right? Because sometimes we don't realize how we come across, but we also don't realize what it is we actually need. And so I think what you're highlighting is very important, to take that step back, do a little pause, do a check-in, like, what do I need to do? And so I guess, Rachel, where I want to take this is, how do you know? How do you know when it's time to bring that VA in?
I think if you're asking the question, you're already on the journey.
Good response. Yes.
And I actually have a quiz, Are You Ready for a VA, on my website that will tell you if you're ready, almost ready, not ready, and what steps to do wherever you are along the journey. Mm-hmm. But if you're starting to go, yes, I can do it, but that doesn't mean I should be doing it.
Great distinction, by the way. Great distinction. And that goes back to that delegating piece, right? Sure, most of the time we can do those things, but is that where your time, energy, and effort is best spent?
Right.
Yeah.
I tell clients to keep a piece of paper, and as you're going through your day, jot down all the things that you're doing that you don't have to do, that with training, with processes, with perfectionism shunted to the side, you could hand it off. Because if you're putting off the things that only you can do or that you have to do because you're doing something that could be handed off to somebody else, are you putting your time and energy where it's best served? or are you just doing busy work? And there is a difference between being productive and being busy. And a lot of times when we're crossing things off a list, we're feeling like, oh, I'm so productive, but really you're just busy. You know, a good quality VA is $50 to $80 an hour. If you're a coach, if you're a consultant, if you are an executive level leader and you're doing $50 an hour work instead of your two, three, four, $800 an hour work, are you saving money or are you just spinning? And I think that so often those are the things that people feel like, I'm not ready to be visible in my real passion yet, so I'm going to focus on this that feels urgent but it's not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I'm not ready for what's next. And I will tell you, Vicki, the amount of creativity that the universe fills a void with when you hand stuff off to somebody whose zone of genius is doing it, it was amazing.
Yeah.
I started a podcast, I wrote a book. I've taken my business to a whole new level just from hiring my own VAs. Not even the journey of learning it, but just in my own social media.
Yeah.
I do it for clients, but even just handing off my own stuff created this void that was powerful in what came into it. I feel like if you're asking the question, do I need a VA? Then you are at that next level plateau, right? You're ready to step up. The answer is maybe, maybe not. You may not be ready for somebody, but you might be ready to start putting those pieces into place to then be ready. I never tell somebody you have to hire a VA and you have to hire this kind of VA. But I think if you're in the weeds and you're doing stuff, it might be, okay, if I were to hand this off, what would I need in place to do that? Okay, when I send this email, I put it into a Google document so that I can start to capture my templates so that I could ask a VA to take it on, right? Or I can start to document my process so that I have it, so that I don't have to keep it all in my head and question every time I'm taking on a new client, what does that journey look like? And I think for some people, that is the next step, is
Absolutely.
to get that clarity of what is it that I'm doing? What does it look like? And how could I systematize it so that somebody else could step in? Mm-hmm. Because it may not be a person, it might be a system, it might be just somebody to come in and be like, okay, let's strategize out what it looks like, we'll set you up with some automations and away you go. But I think that if you're asking the question, even at the back recesses of your mind, you're getting to that point where you're ready to level up to either create better systems for yourself or to then be able to hand it off to somebody else.
Right. Okay. Very good. So what would you say would be some of the first tasks that entrepreneurs, leaders should be looking at to delegate that are going to give them back time, productivity? You mentioned that earlier, right? Like, because it is a ROI, right? It's figuring out where's my time, energy, and effort best spent and at the maximum return. So what might be some examples? And I mean, I know it varies depending on the type of client, but maybe just share some of your normal examples.
So I think it depends on the client where they're spending most of their busy time. If it's a coach or a service provider who is spending a lot of time going back and forth with emails to schedule, right? Handing that off, or asking somebody to help them create automation or systems to get that ease. If you're chasing people for invoicing, maybe handing that off, right? Because I know I don't like asking for money, so I can ask for my clients, but other people are like, I don't even want to look at social media, let alone schedule it out, post it, create graphics, do all the things. I think it depends on where your pain point is and looking at that with some realism. Because every task that you have, very rarely do we look at a task and go, that's a single action step. Everything pretty much has a whole laundry list of smaller tasks to go with
Sure.
it. Sending out a newsletter, right? I counted, it was 19 steps to start a newsletter. But within that flow, there are things that the client wants to do, and there are things that clients like, you know what, I don't want to touch any part of that. So it could be looking at the steps that you're doing within your daily, weekly, monthly process and go, okay, I have enough capacity to write the content for my newsletter, but I want to hand off the rest of it to somebody else.
Right. Of course.
Right?
That
I
makes
have the
sense.
capacity to take my blog and make it into social media posts, but I want somebody else to design the graphic and post it for me. And so I think it can be as simple as breaking down the tasks and pulling out the things you love doing that you are passionate about that only you can do, and then looking at the rest and going, okay, I see where I can hand stuff off, and that'll free up my time to write more posts or to do something else.
Yeah, those are really good examples. And I know one question that's probably like somebody in the audience is going, okay, Vicky, when are you going to ask this question? So, how has AI impacted your business, the thought leadership around virtual assistants? Like, what are you seeing with regards to AI? And are you integrating it, or is it outside of what you're doing?
That's a great question, and it's one that we've gotten a lot as
Yeah, I'm
virtual
sure.
assistants. I've heard from others too. Is will AI replace virtual assistants? And the short answer is certain types of VAs. I think AI is a tool. It's an amazing tool. It helps me on a daily basis. Call ChatGPT my therapist because it helps me in so many ways. But if you're a client and you're finding yourself having to write a prompt for your VA to do a task that you could literally copy and paste into ChatGPT, then why would you hire a VA to do that prompt? Within my own relationships with my clients, I have one client who uses AI as a thought partner. He'll ask it questions, they'll have a whole conversation, and then he'll send it to me to look at and go, what am I not seeing for my business? Because while AI is really good at what it's good at, it is only as good as what you put into it.
100%.
I had another client who used it to try to figure out what a technology platform to use for workshops, not even taking into account what it looks like and how that would appeal to her brain. Who's going to work in it? Who's setting it up? Who's managing it? Is she doing that? Am I doing that? And AI gave her the answer that she was already looking for, because it was basically like, do I do this platform or this platform? Okay, the pros and cons for both platforms, but not taking into where's her business going, like all of these other things that a human would ask. And so for right now, where AI is at, it can help with thinking things through, it can help with tying pieces together, it can help with crafting a beautifully written post or article or things like that, or fine tuning something that you've already written. But I don't think it will replace human intuition and guidance. That's to say, if a VA does those things, right? If we go back to doers and collaborators, AI is not it is a collaborative partner, but it's not. I brought 20 years of experience, right? A
Well,
lot
that's
of the
why I
VAs
asked the question,
yeah,
right? Because I think sometimes people think, oh, well, I'll just get ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or Copilot or whatever version,
Mm-hmm.
but we miss that human interaction, the years of wisdom. And I think the way you've described it, Rachel, is very important because it is a combination of both. It's not one or the other. It is a combination of both. And it's also about how fast you want to accelerate. And so both mechanisms are very important. So I'm just cognizant of our time here. And what I'd love us to talk about for a few minutes, if you're okay with that, is we have a broad audience listening, right? We have corporate, we have entrepreneurs, solopreneurs from every discipline imaginable across 92 countries. So, yeah, exactly. So, what I'd like to tap into is what is one action that whoever is listening could take this week and help them become a better delegator, and that things that your wisdom has been able to witness over the 21 years that you've been doing this, like what would you recommend they do first if it was just one action?
Take note of your capacity and where you're spending your time, because I think that will give you an idea of where you can let go of something. And what was interesting when I was starting this journey was how delegation showed up in all areas of my life when I looked at one place first.
Mm.
When I started to think about what would I hand off in my business, it was then I cleaned a drawer in the kitchen when I got blocked. I handed off emptying the dishwasher to one of my kids. Creating those little tiny voids gave me capacity, gave me space to look at other things. And when I was the bottleneck in my relationship with my VA, I couldn't necessarily step back to look at that relationship. But when my husband loaded the dishwasher wrong and I immediately stepped in to fix it, I was like, oh, you're the problem. Step back. It's fine. It's still going to get the dishes clean. It's just not how I would do it.
That's a great example. A great example.
So I think it's paying attention to those places where control, perfectionism, stepping into things that you're wanting to hand off, but you're finding yourself still holding on to, because that does give you some clarity to going, okay, this is not mine to control. This is not mine to control. And it is a mantra in the beginning, whether it's a VA or at home. It doesn't really matter. There are places where good enough is good enough. It may not be how you do it, but it's still getting done and it's still getting done well. And it's letting yourself off the hook of having to control every aspect. Now, as a mom, as an entrepreneur, even as a VA, like it was really, really hard to let go of control and perfectionism and all the things. I worked really, really hard on that. And that was a mindset shift, not like it showed up physically as a task or something like that, but it was more internal. It was my own like personal journey of, okay, if I'm letting this go, another great example, when I let go of making dinner to my husband, it wasn't just the act of making dinner, because he would come to me and say, what do you want us to make? What do you want to eat? And if I was going to let go of making dinner, I also had to let go of meal planning, meal prepping, shopping, checking the cupboards to make sure we had things in there. The list was so much deeper than just that
Yeah.
one
Always
piece.
is.
It always is. So I think one thing that I would say is have grace with yourself, that it's not going to show up perfectly right away. It's going to take time. It's going to feel discomfortable. There is a learning curve with anyone. Letting go of something that has been yours and is no longer yours to do, it's going to show up in ways you can't imagine, you can't plan for. The what ifs are endless, but it's looking at it with curiosity and not judgment, and asking, what am I feeling here? What am I taking away from it? What do I need to learn from it? And then letting that kind of guide your next steps. Even when I handed off a task and I took it back on, I didn't take it on forever. I had to go, all right, this is a you problem. This is not your VA problem. What do we need to learn? What do we need to do? And then I could put things in place. And I baby stepped my way to be okay with it, to where now I'm like, as long as there's social media out there, I don't even care anymore.
Well, those are great examples. And I think many of us are guilty of that for sure. So I do have to wrap us up, Rachel, but I know our audience is probably saying, okay, I have more questions about how do I hire a VA? Why should I hire a VA? So how can people find you?
The best place to find me is on my website at www.extrahandsva.com. I will also give you my link tree, which has all my social media handles and direct links to certain pages on the website. I have my book, Hey, Do I Need a VA? A How-To Guide to Find, Hire, and Work with a Virtual Assistant, which is a great place to start if you need to read your information. And that's on Amazon, and the paperback's on all the major platforms. But if you're an auditory learner, we have our podcast, Hey, Do I Need a VA? And there's a lot of great information there about what virtual assistants want business owners to know when they're looking to find, hire, and work with a virtual assistant. So those are all the ways to connect with me. And I'd be really happy to talk to anyone in your audience about what they're specifically looking for. And I have a VA referral directory where I can help them find a good quality person.
Excellent. Excellent. And where do they find the podcast?
Podcast is on all the major platforms.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Wow. Rachel, thank you. This has been super informative. Audience, if you have questions or you're contemplating a VA, certainly, and we're talking virtual assistant, if you're chiming in late, take some time, check out her podcast. It may give you some answers to questions that you have. And it may also shift some of the mindset with regards to how you're delegating. I think there were some really great learnings that came from this conversation today. So Rachel, thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us and your wisdom of 21 years doing this. And audience, thank you so much for chiming in today. If you're interested in learning more about your leadership and how you might be presenting yourself in the world, visit our website at Women in Leadership Empowered, or Will Empowered, that's one L. We have a free leadership quiz. Welcome to take that. It gives you a lot of great insight as to how you're presenting yourself and what might be some opportunities for you, but also, more importantly, where are you excelling? We all need to celebrate where we're excelling. So check that out. Feel free to go in, take the quiz, learn a little bit about yourself. And we will see you on the next Women in Leadership podcast. And so thank you again, Rachel, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for Will Talk, sponsored by Women in Leadership Empowered. To learn more about our programs, please visit www.willempowered.com. We look forward to seeing you in our community.